Beyond procurement, sustainable meetings are another important area to look at. Now, what is a sustainable meeting? So it's obviously one that's designed or organized in a way that minimizes negative environmental impacts and can leave a positive impact on a host community. Whether it's an internal meeting, whether it's trying to find local and sustainable food options, minimizing the impact of people traveling there or having paperless or recycled options, or if it's an external meeting where you're going somewhere, finding that venue of choice that also might happen to be a green convention center or hotel, finding ways that you can get around using public transportation or mass transit, or maybe even having the hotel located right next to a major transportation hub so that people don't even have to rent cars. These are ways that you incorporate sustainability into your meeting and into your guidelines. And it's just, again, it's a different way of thinking. You may be asking, okay, so you talked a lot about procurement, and I get that, but why are meetings so important? Well, meetings and events are the second most wasteful industry in the United States after the building and construction industry. An average conference participant, let's say over a 3-day conference, they might generate 61 pounds of waste compared to maybe 13 that they might have at home. If you think about that, that's 4 times as much waste. And it all makes sense, right? You're at a conference and you get a meal, you get that rubber chicken meal and you leave a lot of it off to the side and you don't know where it goes. It's certainly not going in your compost. You may be getting a whole bunch of paper and swag and stuff that you're never going to use and you just leave in the hotel room. You're staying in your hotel room and you're asking for the sheets and the towels to be changed all the time, especially your sheets and your pillowcases. Ask yourself, how many times have you changed your own sheets and pillowcases in the last week? So you get a sense of how meetings can have a much bigger impact than just when you're at home. And certainly, a lot of hotels, they keep the rooms at 70 degrees all day long. Your house, you don't do that. When you leave and you go out to work for 8 hours, you probably turn down the thermostat and then have it turned back on right before you come. These are all examples of how incorporating some thoughts into your sustainability in your meetings can have a lower environmental impact. And traveling to these meetings, that could be just as big an impact, if not a greater impact than what actually happens there. If let's say you have a flight and you road miles to and from an event, it's pretty much been shown by the EPA that just typically when someone travels and they have to fly to an event, it's the equivalent of driving their car for a month. So think about that as you're thinking about where we're going to have meetings and why we're going to have meetings. Can they be done virtually or do they need to be done in person? Here are some other statistics about, different things that can be done and the potential ways to lower the impact throughout a meeting or a conference, throughout the entire course of the event. You can just do simple things. By not pre-filling water glasses at tables, you can save 2,000 liters of water if you have, let's say, 2,000 people there. It doesn't seem like much. It seems like, of course. But think about all the beverages that are left on a lunch or a dinner or a breakfast table and all that water that's being purposely wasted. You wouldn't do that at home. But at meetings, everyone kind of takes a different mindset. So it's somehow embedding those decisions and those thought processes as you're creating a meeting, and by building it in your practices as a framework and as a guideline up front, you're going to dramatically lower your impact on the back end. Here's some just examples as some categories as to how you could lower your environmental or social impact. Whether it's how you choose your food and beverage items, how you have materials and promotional elements, to your site selection. I mentioned, having it within walking distance to a venue or to a mass transit stop, having some type of virtual component to it so that people don't have to travel all the way, or where are you using your criteria for future site selection. All of these things can be put into your criteria when you're developing a sustainable meeting. Probably saying, okay, this makes a lot of sense, but what are some best practices? Well, for an external meeting, start as early as possible in the planning process. Again, in your own RFPs that you're putting out to a convention center or a hotel saying, hey, we want to bring our meeting there, ask them to tell you what they're going to do to make sure that they're providing locally sourced or environmentally responsible food and products. Create a checklist that you could actually give to vendors, and rate them on what they're doing, and ask them to not only report but evaluate what they're doing. Internally, you just need to be consistent with your expectations. Every office, if you're, let's say an organization that's offices all around the country, you're going to have different standards of what are the, quote, norms, from an environmental perspective, and they're going to be different. So you want to create some consistency and some expectations across the country or across the globe. You want to make sure that the project manager, whoever's in charge of hosting a meeting, is also trained on the sustainability meeting policy. You need to clearly communicate what's expected and definitely post it in the rooms. If you got people coming in from out of state or out of the country with a different cultural norm, they need to be brought up to speed. And again, set clear expectations about what the expectation is up front.